Hey kiddos, we are back with some more of Narnia, the Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. All right, so we just spent a little time with the beavers. They made a lovely dinner and they were talking and they were telling the children about Aslan. And the kids were so excited because they started feeling like it was spring. They started feeling all these great feelings with just the thought of Aslan. And then this happened. I say, where's Edmund? Uh-oh. Everybody go, dum, 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 dum. Here we go. There was a dreadful pause, and then everyone began asking, who saw him last? Who saw him last? How long has he been missing? Is he outside? And then they all rushed to the door and looked out. The snow was falling thickly and steadily. The green ice of the pool had vanished under a thick white blanket of snow. And from where the little house stood in the center of the dam, you could hardly see either bank. Out they went, plunging well over their ankles into the new soft snow, and went around the house in every direction. Edmund, Edmund, they called till they were hoarse. But the silently falling snow seemed to muffle their voices, and there was not even an echo in answer. Uh-oh, where do you think he's gone? How perfectly dreadful, said Susan, and they at last came back in despair. Oh, how I wish we'd never come. Poor Susan, she's always just worried, isn't she? What on earth are we to do, Mr. Beaver? Said Peter. Do, said Mr. Beaver, who was already putting on his snow boots. Do? We must be off at once. We haven't a moment to spare. I think Mr. Beaver knew what was going on. What do you think? We'd better divide into 4 search parties, said Peter, and all go in different direction. Whoever finds him must come back here at once. Search parties, son of Adam, said Mr. Beaver. What for? Why, to look for Edmund, of course. There's no point in looking for him, said Mr. Beaver. What do you mean, said Susan. He can't be far away yet, and we've got to find him. What do you mean when you say there's no use looking for him? The reason there's no use looking, said Mr. Beaver, is that we already know where he's gone. Everyone stared in amazement. Don't you understand, said Mr. Beaver. He's gone to her. Ooh, who's her? Who do you think she is? It's the White Witch. Oh no, Edmund. He has betrayed us all. Oh, surely. Oh, really, said Susan. He can't have done that. Can't he? Said Mr. Beaver, looking very hard at all 3 children, and everything they wanted to say died on their lips, for each felt suddenly certain inside that this is exactly what Edmund had done. Oh, that's so sad. But will he know the way? Said Peter. Has he been in this country before? Said Mr. Beaver. Has he ever been here alone? Yes, said Lucy, almost in a whisper. I'm afraid he has. And did he tell you what he'd done or who he'd met? Well, no, he didn't, said Lucy. Do you remember what he's talking about? Do you remember when Edmund came in and he met the White Witch and he had that Turkish delight? And then he came back and he met Lucy and he said, when he went out of the wardrobe and they said, Lucy said, yeah, tell him we've been there together. And Edmund said, no, we were just playing games. I've never been here. But he never told her he met the witch, did he? No. Because the witch said to make it a secret. Never a good thing. Then mark my words, said Mr. Beaver, he has already met the White Witch and joined her side. And been told where she lives. I didn't like to mention it before, he being your brother and all, but the moment I set eyes on that brother of yours, I said to myself, treacherous. He had the look of one who's been with the witch and eaten her food. You could always tell them if you've lived long in Narnia. Something about their eyes. Oh, so sad. All the same, said Peter, in a rather choking sort of voice, we'll still have to go and look for him. He's our brother, after all. Even if he is rather a little beast. And he's only a kid. Would you want someone to look for you even if you'd been kind of rotten that day? Me too. Go to the witch's house, said Mrs. Beaver. Don't you see that's the only chance of saving him and yourselves is to keep away. That's the only way for them to stay safe is to keep away from the White Witch, right? How do you mean? Said Lucy. Why, all she wants is to get all 4 of you. She's thinking all the time of those 4 thrones at Cair Paravel. So remember, she said she kind of started to warm up when she learned that there was 4 of them, because she knew that when 4 children, 4 sons of Adam and daughter of Eve showed up, they were going to take over the thrones. Once you were all 4 inside her house, her job would be done. There'd be 4 new statues in her collection before you had time to speak. But she'll keep him alive as long as he's the only one she's got, because she'll want to use him as a decoy, as bait to catch the rest of you. Oh, can no one help us? Wailed Lucy. Only Aslan, said Mr. Beaver. We must go on and meet him. That's our only chance now. It seems to me, my dear, said Mrs. Beaver, that it is very important to know just when he slipped away. How much can he tell her depends on how much he heard. So they're wondering, how much did he hear about Aslan, right? For instance, had we started talking about Aslan before he left? If not, then we may do very well, for she won't know that Aslan has come back to Narnia, or that we are meeting him, and will be quite off her guard as far as that is concerned. I don't remember his being here when we were talking about Aslan, began Peter. Lucy interrupted him. Oh, yes, he was here, she said miserably. Don't you remember? It was he who asked whether the White Witch couldn't turn Aslan into stone, too. So he did, by Jove, said Peter. Just the sort of thing he would say, too. Worse and worse, said Mr. Beaver. And the next thing is this. Was he still here when I told you that the place for meeting Aslan was the stone table? And of course no one knew that answer. Because if he was, continued Mr. Beaver, then she'll simply sledge down, that's like sledding, right? Down to the direction and get between us and the stone table and catch us on our way down. In fact, we shall be cut off from Aslan. So they're getting ready to go meet Aslan, and they're saying now, if Edmund tells her, then she'll just cut off the path and we'll never make it to Aslan. But that isn't what she'll do first, said Mrs. Beaver. Not if I know her. The moment that Edmund tells her that we're all here, she will set out to catch us this very night. And if he's been gone about a half an hour, she'll be here in another 20 minutes. Whoa! You're right, Mrs. Beaver, said her husband. We must all get away from here. There's not a moment to lose. And not a moment to lose for you either. We'll see you tomorrow.